she stepped up as my wife and handled that. And it's been many times where I've been at my lowest, and she's always been the strongest to get me back up to like, get back out there. You gotta get back out there and do what you do. Don't worry about what's happening over here. I'm gonna handle that.
It began as a quiet rumor slipping through VIP lounges before it blew across Los Angeles. Word wasn't just that Snoop Dogg was furious with Sean Diddy Combs. The whisper was that he helped take him down. People close to the situation say when the FBI moved in on Diddy in late 2024, that moment wasn't random at all. It looked like payback. And the trigger wasn't money or business. It was a betrayal that hit the one place Snoop guards more fiercely than his entire legacy. His wife, Shantae Broaddus. Sources say by the time Diddy was arrested on September 16th, 2024, the two legends hadn't exchanged a single word in months. Insiders now claim their fallout hit a fatal point when Snoop uncovered what he believed was the ultimate violation, that Diddy had been involved with Shantae not once, but over multiple years during those lavish, exclusive parties that later turned into the backbone of federal charges. So when Combs was convicted in November 2025 and handed just over 4 years behind bars, people immediately asked how prosecutors got such precise behind-the-scenes intel about those gatherings. One theory dominates the rumor mill. Snoop gave them the blueprint. For decades, the two giants moved through the same rooms, their influence tied to the golden era of hip-hop. But sources from both camps say behind the smiles sat a quiet rivalry. Snoop built his world on loyalty and image. Diddy thrived on power and flash. And when the federal case erupted, racketeering, transporting women, and what prosecutors called degrading private encounters, it was Snoop's alleged cooperation that reportedly turned the investigation from chatter into a full-blown takedown.
Well, she just a strong black woman off the tippy. You know.
But this story doesn't start in a courtroom. It starts with a marriage. Shantae Broaddus, a Long Beach native, met Calvin Broaddus long before anyone knew the name Snoop Dogg. They were teenagers at Long Beach Poly, went to prom together, then married in June 1997. Nearly 30 years later, they'd become one of the few steady, unshakable pairings in an industry built on temptation. She stood by him as he transformed from local talent to global icon, through the fall of Death Row Records, through reinvention as a businessman and family man. By 2021, she officially became his manager, running his TV, gaming, and spirits ventures. Snoop called her his final gut check, the last voice he trusts before any major move.
You see, Snoop Dogg saying he owns Death Row is no different than me saying Tupac was alive because I had the unreleased Tupac music. It ain't no different, bro.
That's why the alleged betrayal hit like an earthquake. According to sources, Snoop's world started cracking in early 2024 when Suge Knight, calling from prison, began needling him through his podcast, Collect Call. In February, Knight posted a photo of Shantae in Hawaii with another man, adding, "I'll pray your wife stops going to Hawaii with other men." This came right after Snoop publicly said he was praying Knight would find peace. Within hours, Knight's comments blew up with speculation. Some called it a desperate shot from behind bars. Others believed Knight knew exactly where to aim. Behind closed doors, Snoop reportedly went silent, focused but ice cold. And just weeks later, federal agents raided Diddy's LA and Miami homes during a widening probe into what prosecutors described as a pattern of control and exploitation. Cassie Ventura's lawsuit had already laid out how Diddy arranged private events, known in court as freak-offs, built on coercion and humiliation. Testimony in the 2025 trial confirmed that several big-name guests had been present. What nobody could explain was how investigators secured names, videos, and financial records from those nights.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, "You don't do a freak-off, I'm going to release one of the freak-off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate you."
That trail pointed back to Snoop. Yes, he'd been at Diddy's events in the past, but pulled back after 2020 when tension grew between their crews. Those around him say he protected his image fiercely, and even more fiercely, Shantae's. He'd weathered scandals of his own, the dismissed 2013 lawsuit, influencer accusations, constant rumors of old affairs. Through all of it, Shantae was his foundation. By late 2023, she was running his bookings for The Voice and expanding their broadest collection brand. So discovering that another powerful man, and a friend at that, might have stepped over that line, one associate called it unforgivable. The moment of retaliation can be traced to early 2024, right after Knight's Hawaii post reopened old wounds. Snoop's public praying for peace seemed calm, but insiders said he was furious in private. Weeks later, word leaked that federal agents had contacted a major industry figure for intel on Diddy's inner circle. When Diddy was arrested that September, that unnamed figure, described only as a longtime West Coast rapper turned businessman, left little mystery. But people close to the situation say this wasn't just revenge. It was self-preservation. The investigation threatened dozens of celebrities. Rumors swirled of video evidence showing very recognizable faces. Cooperating may have been Snoop's way of shielding his family from being dragged into the scandal.
Turmoil and the stuff that I put her through in my journey on becoming successful, because I had no understanding of what I was doing to her, how I was hurt.
Meanwhile, public sympathy shifted toward Shantae. For 27 years, she balanced being supportive and independent, the quiet architect behind Snoop's empire. He often described her as the good to my bad, but by early 2025, that picture-perfect image was cracking under the weight of rumors. Shantae appeared at industry events alone, posting cryptic captions about trust and truth. Fans wondered if her relationship with Snoop had been shaky long before the Diddy drama. Knight's podcast stirred things again, hinting that the lady of the house wasn't always home. As the trial unfolded in New York, Snoop kept his distance, appearing only once in March 2025 for an NBC event, dodging every question about the case. What most people didn't realize was how deep his involvement ran. Prosecutors referenced third-party communications that backed up witness accounts of Diddy's private gatherings. They said these came from a trusted industry veteran. Insiders claim the files included venue logs, guest lists, and timestamps dating back nearly a decade. Now, with Diddy serving his 4-year term at MDC Brooklyn, sources say Snoop is quietly relieved, not celebrating publicly, but carrying himself like the storm is finally behind him. Still, the price of that victory might be higher than anyone expected. Because beneath Diddy's conviction sits one more mystery. If Snoop's motive was protecting his wife, then why are there whispers he might have secrets of his own? Sources claim the same files that incriminated Diddy contain more names, unreleased names, and according to 2 former staffers, one of those names belongs to someone far closer to Snoop than he ever saw coming.
When you get to be the age that we at and you get to become as successful as we are, you have to start doing some things that matter for the future.
As investigators dug deeper, it became clear that Snoop's cooperation with the feds might not have been fueled by revenge alone. It looked more like a strategic move, an intentional play to shield everything he'd spent decades building. When Snoop quietly snapped up the Death Row Records catalog in 2023, fans saw a full circle moment. But Suge Knight didn't see a victory. He saw a robbery. From his prison bunk, Knight kept insisting that Snoop stole the label, claiming the paperwork was shaky and the whole deal was sealed through back-channel legal connections. And honestly, the speed of that acquisition and how fast Snoop flipped Death Row into a polished, family-friendly digital brand did raise eyebrows. For someone once accused of glorifying the street life, it felt like the perfect redemption arc. Unless that redemption came at someone else's cost. Industry insiders believe Snoop's willingness to work with prosecutors against Diddy may have been a protective maneuver, an attempt to fortify his brand before federal heat drifted anywhere near death row. Remember, the same investigators leading the Diddy probe were already examining other entertainment companies for questionable financial ties. By positioning himself as a government ally instead of a target, Snoop may have secured both his freedom and his business future. It's the sort of blueprint we expect from billion-dollar CEOs, not rappers. Yet Snoop has always blurred those lines. In the public eye, the former Dogfather had morphed into a calculated corporate strategist, someone who knew exactly when to walk away and exactly when to hand over intel.
I've been by you for your
She's
whole
your high
career,
school
your high school sweetheart. She is.
You never leave home without it.
Yeah, that's right. But how has she kind of taken you on this journey? Tell us about her.
I think my wife has been my best friend for a couple of reasons. One is that she always understood who I was and who I needed to be.
At the center of all this stands Shantae Brodus. To the outside world, she looked like the loyal wife blindsided by betrayal. But people who've worked inside the Brodus business machine say the truth is far more layered. As Snoop's official manager since 2021, Shantae wasn't sitting on the sidelines. She helped engineer many of his biggest moves, pushing forward the death row acquisition, rejecting the OnlyFans route, and steering the shift into TV deals and brand partnerships. When early allegations about Diddy started bubbling, she reportedly urged Snoop to step back, legally and morally, from anything remotely tied to Diddy's lifestyle. That phrase, legally and morally, hits differently now. Did she know what Storm was building? Was she shielding her husband? Or was she preparing for a clean break that would permanently distance Snoop's name from one of entertainment's most toxic scandals? Some insiders go even further, claiming Shantae played a key role in gathering the very evidence that eventually made its way to investigators. One former assistant from the Brodus office says digital files and phone archives were quietly organized throughout 2024, records that included communication from Diddy's event planners and promoters. If that's true, Shantae wasn't just a betrayed partner. She was an architect in the unraveling of Diddy's empire. It would mean the woman he allegedly targeted in secret became the silent force behind his downfall. And that twist, the victim who becomes the strategist, is why this story refuses to die.
A lot of times you have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
It's important to remember that the case against Diddy wasn't built solely on Cassie Ventura's lawsuit or witness testimony. Prosecutors relied on a web of corroborating accounts, timestamps, and surveillance info that matched the logistics of private events dating back nearly a decade. Some of those gatherings were hosted on the West Coast at properties controlled by entertainment groups loosely connected to Snoop's wider network. Is it coincidence that Snoop later purchased one of those same properties through a holding company in 2022? Maybe. But the timing raises real questions about how intertwined these two moguls were and how carefully Snoop might have been pulling himself out before everything went nuclear. Meanwhile, Suge Knight's podcast turned into a megaphone for accusations. He teased a tell-all book, claiming it would expose who really betrayed who. He suggested Snoop's evolution from a death row artist to a global businessman was built on deals made with devils in suits. Most people dismissed it as prison cell bitterness, until federal agents started subpoenaing financial documents from old death row affiliates. Suddenly, Knight's ranting felt less like spite and more like someone who knew too much. If that book ever drops, it could explode the industry, forcing a reevaluation of the alliances that shaped hip-hop's golden era.
TikTok, the clock is ticking on Diddy because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be, but today he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years.
While Snoop quietly strengthened his empire, Diddy's world collapsed in plain sight. At his 2025 sentencing, the man who once embodied excess and luxury looked defeated, telling the court, "I got lost in excess." That one line summed up everything: the power, the indulgence, the control that had fueled his career. Prosecutors laid out how he wielded influence and fear to maintain his inner circle, using testimony from witnesses who described private encounters where loyalty blurred into exploitation. His conviction on transportation-related charges might have been lighter than the public expected, but the symbolism was crushing. A mogul who once commanded stars was now locked inside an 8x10 cell at NDC Brooklyn. And the irony is impossible to ignore. While Diddy wakes up to steel and concrete, Snoop wakes up to boardrooms, family dinners, and a booming brand, stretching from music to gaming. It's a stunning reversal that has the entire industry whispering, did Snoop outmaneuver the same machine that once tried to swallow him whole? Or is he simply the latest survivor who learned to trade silence for safety? Either way, his hold on death row, his network deals, and his spotless public image make him one of the last untouchables of his generation.
Diddy, obviously just starting out his time, well, not just starting out, but starting out his official sentence since being sentenced not too long ago. And I think suffice to say, it's not going well so far.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's got 4 years and change that he's going to ultimately have to serve, although he has served already a year as he awaited his trial and then went through his trial.
But the whispers are growing. Reports claim that even from behind bars, Diddy has been speaking privately with journalists, hinting he'll drop new names if it earns him a reduced sentence. And if any of those names connect to Snoop's inner circle, this entire saga could reignite in an instant. Meanwhile, Shantae's upcoming memoir, Paid the Cost to Be the Boss Lady, promises to unpack her life under the spotlight. And the timing is almost too perfect. Whether she denies the rumors or leans into them, one well-crafted chapter could reshape the narrative completely. Insiders also warned that Snoop's cooperation with federal officials may stretch far beyond the Diddy investigation. The FBI's Entertainment Crime Unit reportedly has ongoing files on other major figures, some of whom attended the same events now under scrutiny. If Snoop still has an open line with investigators, the next wave of revelations may already be loading. As one former label exec put it, if he helped them once, he can help them again, and everybody knows it. That fear is shifting the industry. Artists are putting distance between themselves and both camps, unwilling to be caught in whatever hits next. The implications are massive. This isn't just about one man's downfall. It's about a reckoning across hip-hop. The generation that once thrived on secrecy is discovering that secrets no longer stay buried. And in the middle of it all stand Snoop Dogg and Shantae Brodus, two pillars of legacy and loyalty, who may be holding truths powerful enough to shake the culture they helped build.
We all know that. I have to say, I'd never heard of this movie, and I have little kids. It was called Lightyear from 2022. I have absolutely no problem with the content. Like, he has a problem with the content in that movie. I have no problem at all. I thought that was presented as a brief history part of this movie. It wasn't a big part of the movie, and gay couples exist, and gay marriage is legal, and I found it all completely unproblematic. That said,
still, too many questions linger. Did Snoop help topple Diddy purely to shield his wife or to safeguard his empire? Was Shantae the betrayed partner or the quiet mastermind orchestrating the entire play? Do Suge Knight's accusations about the death row takeover connect to the same network of influence that brought Diddy down? And if Snoop really handed the authorities what they needed once, who might he point to next? In an industry built on fame and silence, power never disappears. It just shifts hands. And this story is nowhere near finished. There are messages still buried, testimonies still sealed, and voices still scared to talk. Diddy's fall might have closed a chapter, but the book is wide open. So the real question is, when the truth finally surfaces, will Snoop still look like the hero, or will he become the next headline? Let us know what you think, because in this world, loyalty is currency, and someone's balance is about to hit zero. Until next time, stay locked in. This storm is nowhere near over.